So then we are back with a more understanding on the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. The Emperor Yeshayahu the prophet, we find then known as Isaiah, the 61st chapter, a section of it related with the completion of the spring feast, a mentioning of the autumn feast known as vengeance, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. So let's understand the inclusion of the Gentiles in the plan, and then understand with absolutely no shadow of a doubt that our friends, the Soviet Union, then is coming back. If we think we can do whatever we want during this time, we are absolutely badly mistaken. So let's understand the Daniel himself as then the politician, as then a person related with the trade, and then later as a prophet. We find then ourselves during this time where the world then is transitioning themselves as far as nations then composing the world, and then the transition of the Balian system and the certainty of the dragon system. In order for these to take place, the dragon system must be available for the rest of the world. So then there are a few words in the holy instructions where they were changed for no reason. For instance, Gala, there is a section of it related with the beast, the first beast and the second beast. The first beast obviously was then the Catholic system in Europe, and then obviously the second beast then is United States, and then enforcing the Sunday then worship, because it's a spiritual understanding. There is not much relation with the trade. It's purely religion. However, when we read, and then these second beast would then worship the dragon, the system would be then enforcing the dragon. It's not truly dragon, it is the devil. Because we are speaking of this nation being born during the time of the seed. More than a couple hundred years ago, we were during the time of the seed, so can't be dragon. It is devil. But then translators, then for many centuries, then even the set apart did not understand. So we are not reading then dragon, we are reading then obviously because the nation was then involved with the deceit as being the false prophet, because favoring the Sunday rather than the day of rest, Shabbat, then became the false prophet. But during the time of its born, when it was then born, couldn't be dragon. It must be devil, because it's deceit. How can you understand deceit and then speaking of dragon? Dragon is precision. It is a facet of Nahashatan, as you understand. When Job was then questioned by the Creator, then Nahashatan, he went up there, did he not? In what facet did he showed up? As the dragon. Precision. Because he was claiming a legal understanding of the instructions. It couldn't be any other than the facet of dragon. So is that a serpent that went up there? No. Serpent was then a curse placed upon. Got nothing to do with it. Has the beast. The beast is a bad term. It was then a transformation of Lucifer, of who he was, then to the beast. Ugly. Couldn't be. Serpent couldn't be. Devil couldn't be. In what tone he was explaining the situation with the Creator? Precision. There is only a understanding of a facet of Nahashatan related with precision, and there is the dragon. So when we read then Gala related with then the false prophet, How can you say false prophet and speaking of dragon? You can't speak of dragon and false prophet. You have to understand, false prophet, devil, slanderer, liar, and so on and so forth. So this time then, when we find the system of the dragon as precision, not particularly related with tabernacling, only a fact of trade's precision, computer, as Daniel said. Then we find the billion system in lots of areas of the world, where a lot of these countries are very influential, such as United States. You find then Germany, you find France, and many other countries involved with this Babylonian system. So then, as a spiritual understanding, you must recognize there is the spiritual meaning of it and the trades meaning of it. During the time of the seat, those were mixed up. And from the original manuscripts, you understand there is no mixing with religion and government. Government never existed. What does exist then was the prophet, and he was the leader of the country. So then when we understand restoration, the original manuscripts then provides us with the proper understanding. Because we are speaking of tabernacling. Then tabernacling indicates the kingdom yet coming. However, there is trade besides. Trade in a world other than tabernacling, you have to recognize first and the utmost dragon. No more this religiosity. Because the Savior came and he then was the redemptor of the world, then this world became then the kingdom of the Savior. You have to be joking. The Messiah himself said this age must be destroyed. He came then to save his people first. His people then would be obedient of then whatsoever Moses told them to do and observe. Then they had to transition themselves of then the period of time of the Messiah of 1,000 years. Then they would provide salvation to the Gentiles. But then in a world remains dragon. If we want to understand precision, you have to understand the dragon. So then, let's try and understand where these then is going, because we find then in Daniel the 11th chapter, very simply related with the time of the restoration period of the cities of the Messiah, laid waste for many centuries, where then the trade must be then re-established as per during the time of Yohanan. During the time of Yohanan, you had then the stick of authority active of the Israelites and also the Ishmaelites. Then later, there was 1,000 years of mixture of these. You can't mix. You can't, absolutely cannot mix whatsoever is of tabernacling and what is trade. Those never mix. Otherwise, there are no two sticks. The reason why it has two sticks is because they can't mix. So then you find the dragon system, then the Chinese. The most modern system of trade computerized in the planet. They are it. They are then the future of the trade of the world. Then you find coming via the Pacific and then staying in the Asiatic region. Why? Because Shaliach Shaul was transitioning his people during his time. Shaliach Shaul was already explaining there are two sticks. Tabernacling was being formed where the Messiah was in charge of the Holy of Holies, and then the Ishmaelites were in charge of the trade of the time. So there was no mixing. Later then Daniel said, then the people would get mixed with the world for a time. Isn't that true? During this time, the nations, they would try to adhere to each other, but they would not. And this was then in Europe. They came up with their own system for many centuries. For 1,000 years, Europeans, they tried to unify themselves. It never worked. And it won't work. So then let's be very clear, because when we read Daniel the 11th chapter, we find then the kingdom of the north, then at some point, leading the market. How they are leading the market? Because they are working for the Chinese. It's because the Chinese, they have the system of precision as far as trade and the world's market. However, we are finding then other countries trying to take the place of China. They're trying to come against the Chinese. They're trying to contain the Chinese. They think they are a threat when they are not a threat. A threat is if we don't understand the whole instructions. China is not a threat. There's a lot of events yet must take place, and very specific. The kingdom of the north at some point becoming the managers for China. China is not going to do and make and give orders to the northern kingdom as far as their own country. No, they are simply hired as the manager. When you hired then as a manager, then you do what you want when you are not on duty. You receive your pay, then you do what you want. However, when you are on duty, you receive orders then obviously from your employer. These then makes the friends of the past, the Soviet Union, then is truly back. So our friends from the 60s of the Cold War, they are returning. We must prepare ourselves how to deal with them. Obviously, in the best positive market we can ever provide. This means we must work in our own system, so then we can become partners with the new trade yet coming. That's why there is a transitional time of the Babylonian system. That's why the entire world is nearly screwed up, other than China and then the Asiatic market. Because if you understand, if you were living in the Asian area, there is no confusion over there. They know what they are doing. They understand the market, they understand freighting, they understand ships, they understand containers, they understand the system, they understand transactions, they understand direct trade. They are never confused. They are doing their everyday dragon-addict understandings and way of trade, because they hold the market of the future. But then in the West, you find then, unfortunately, the nations trying to come together against China. It's not going to work. So at some point then, the Chinese, they're going to hire the Northern Kingdom as their managers. And then the rest of us, we must then behave ourselves and work on our economies, and then do what we should be doing, control our economy, and becomes then partners of the trade yet coming. So if the world thinks they can go around and try to unify themselves against China, they are badly mistaken. They are not only dealing with the prophecy of the instructions, but they are dealing with the precision of the dragon. And the rest of the world is dealing with a devilish side of Nahashatan no longer exists. The Creator has given a time for devilish time. From 1009 to 2009, those were the devilish years. They could devil themselves around. No more. We are no longer during the time of Nahashatan, then face of the, or facet of devil. We are in the facet of the dragon. So what nations they are trying to come together and go against China? And what kind of a weapon are they using? Their economies are busted. If you observe then Europe, their economy is busted. If you observe North America, we are busted. So we are gathering the busted people and then going against the dragon. Insane. So then, because it's restoration, we should retrieve ourselves, behave ourselves, and then work on our economy. At some point, the trade market must be Chinese yen. That's where the dragon is at. That's where precision is at. That's what's going to become available for the rest of the world, liking it or not. And then our friend, the Soviet Union, is back, liking it or not. Read the instructions. But then if we do our homework, if we do what we should be doing, working our economy, making sure we develop a department of taxation and freighting. Because you understand, the retailers are complaining because of the lack of trade. This indicates online trade becoming increasingly more than preoccupant. What kind of then deal we must be involved with then Department of Taxation and Freighting? So then we can prepare ourselves for what's coming in the future. Because then the world must recognize a manager, very tough manager, is coming. And we are not unknown of its devices. Because this country experienced the sting of the Soviet Union. They are not people we should be playing with. During the Cuban crisis, many people don't understand, but the Soviets, they had torpedo with warheads, atomic warheads and torpedoes. A lot of people don't even know this much. An atomic bomb in the tip of a torpedo. And the government wasn't even aware of it. So the basis for our president then become very acquainted with our friends from the 60s. Because we must deal with them not only as then contrary or adversaries, but then we must deal with them as managers. It changes the position a bit, doesn't it? Because we in America, we've got nothing working in our favor. Absolutely nothing. We got nothing. We don't have barely any economy. The economy is not improving. Employment is not improving. Unemployment is rampant. A lot of stores are closing. Retailers complaining. More direct trade is taking place. And our country is not doing what's obvious. A department of taxation and freighting, so they can start then tackle the online trade and start taxing as such. Because the managers are coming. If we were unaware of the workings of these people of the North, then we would have at least a slack of, do some study. But this country is very much acquainted. And they are on standby. But then our country and some other countries trying, to scandalizing themselves and going against China. They are insane. How can they go against the dragon?